What's up guys, my name is Ace, and as many of you guys may know by now, one of my favorite secondary weapons to use in Warzone is the SPR-208. This is my favorite bolt-action sniper rifle to use, and I often get the question, what is your SPR setup? So today we are going to be going through in great detail, looking at it attachment by attachment, to share my best setup as well as all of the important stats with that setup, and then a couple variants as well, because the thing about the SPR, and one of the things I love about it, is just how versatile it is. You can set it up in different ways for different roles. But the primary focus is going to be on my preferred setup here, so let's just start going through attachment by attachment. Now, the thing about sniper rifles in Warzone, especially for the modern warfare sniper rifles and bolt-action marksman rifles, is a lot of the attachments are just sort of no-brainers. Like, there's no question here that we should be using the monolithic suppressor, for instance. That should be on every single one of your SPR builds. Same thing goes with the barrel. The barrel should definitely be the SPR 26-inch barrel. This is the one that gives you the best bullet velocity, the least amount of bullet drop, and honestly, I just don't see any reason to use any other barrel or any other muzzle attachment. So those two are going to be set in stone no matter which class setup I use, those are going to be on it. And another thing, this one is a bit preference based, but I really like using this attachment. This is the tac laser. Now the thing about the tac laser is it gives us the best possible aim down sight time boost from a single attachment. And for me and my playstyle with a sniper, I like quickly snapping toward target, taking my shot, and then repositioning as fast as possible. I am not the type of person that will sit there aiming down sight for extended periods of time, lining up that perfect shot. Instead, I just like to take that really quick sort of snapshot, not necessarily a quick scope, but I want to get on target, take my shot as fast as possible, and then come out of aim down sight, reposition or take cover while I rechamber, and then I might re-challenge again if I had missed my first shot. So since I'm not aiming down sight for extended periods of time, I don't really worry too much about my enemies seeing my tac laser. Also, since we have scope glint here anyway, I feel like that's generally going to give my position away more than a tac laser in most situations anyway. So that's why I'm perfectly willing to accept the downsides of the tac laser, and that is the fact that the laser is technically visible in order to gain that improved aim down sight time and improved idle sway as well, which is quite important for sniper rifles. So this is one where on all of my builds, I will also be using a tac laser, but I would understand if you wanted to branch away from that. As for the optic, I use the Solo Zero SPR 28mm sniper scope, and this one's great. The default reticle is awesome. It's got a nice zoom value, really nice wide FOV within the scope itself, and it's the one you'll see on most of my builds aside from one, but we'll get into that later in the video. So really, this just leaves us with one attachment slot to play around with, and this is going to be the primary focus of this video. What should we spend that fifth attachment slot on with the SPR? And this is a very important decision that will determine where your particular class setup will excel. And to save you a lot of boring details going through all of the different attachment slots, I can tell you right now, the clear top three choices for this fifth attachment are going to be either of the different ammunition types, so the 300 Norma Mag or the 338 Lapua Mag. Or if you're going to go with the standard ammo, then the next best choice for you is going to be the Feather Bolt, which allows you to rechamber much faster and therefore get a faster fire rate. So these are the three attachments I'm really going to be focusing a lot of time comparing with this because they really do alter the gun in very unique and very important ways. So let's start that comparison and let's focus on bullet velocity. This is one of the most important values for a sniper rifle in this game because bullet velocity is generally directly tied to your bullet drop. And then also, of course, bullet velocity determines how much you have to lead a moving target at range. And as you can see here, the base SPR-208, when it does have the longest barrel and the monolithic suppressor, which like I said is going to be on every single one of my builds no matter what with this gun, our bullet velocity is about 700 meters per second, which isn't great for a sniper rifle. As for the 300 Norma Mag, this gives us the best bullet velocity at 1125 meters per second. Again, that is stacked with the best barrel and the monolithic suppressor. And then finally, for our 338 Lapua, this is 950 meters per second, which is kind of just splitting the difference between the last two. And when we have a look at our bullet drop as well, keeping in mind with this, the target I'm shooting at is 450 meters away, which honestly, I don't usually even take shots at this range. Normally, when I'm using this gun, I will only challenge out to maybe about 300 meters or so. And beyond that, I just don't bother most of the time. But you can see here, the 300 Norma Mag gives us the best bullet drop. There's almost no bullet drop at 450 meters, which is great. That is closely followed by the 338 Lapua. It's got a bit more bullet drop, but not too much more. And then finally, you can see with the base ammunition, if we're just using that Feather Bolt and none of these other ammunition types, we got quite a bit of bullet drops at 450 meters. So far, the 300 Norma Mag is the clear winner here, but bullet velocity and bullet drop isn't everything for a sniper rifle, even though it is very important. Let's have a look at some of the other stats. And the next one I wanted to have a brief look at is just our damage, because one of these ammunition types affects our damage. This is a 338 Lapua. And as you can see, when it comes to headshot damage, they're all the same. They're going to be a one-shot headshot, even against fully armored enemies, as long as you're not shooting through something. And our upper torso damage is the same story. It's going to be 167 damage, which is a ton of damage, by the way, for an upper torso shot. And it's going to be the same no matter which ammo type you like using. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons I really like the SPR-208 compared to something like an AX-50 or an HDR or a Pellington. We just get a ton of upper torso damage. But finally, with our lower torso damage, or our stomach damage, this is where we get a slight damage boost with 338 Lapua rounds, up to 102 damage. And while this might look kind of attractive on paper, when you think about a realistic situation, you should always be aiming for headshots with this gun. That's the reason to use this, is for that quick one-shot kill to the head. And even if you miss that headshot and you still hit your target, it's generally going to be an upper torso shot. There should be very few situations where you end up landing a shot to the stomach of an enemy player. And therefore, this damage boost with the 338 Lapua, I consider that to be negligible. It's just not going to be impacting many situations at all. And with that, that leads us to our next really important stat with this gun, and this is our aim down sight time, because with the SPR, this is considered one of the faster sniper rifles for aiming down sight and getting onto target quickly. It's not going to be as fast as a stacked Kar 98, but it is still on the faster side for a sniper rifle. And especially for me in my playstyle, like I said, I like snapping onto that headshot fairly quickly. This is quite an important stat. And we can see here, once again, stacked with the obvious attachments that I talked about at the beginning of the video. When we're just using the base ammunition, our aim down sight time is going to be 450 milliseconds, which is very fast for a one-shot kill weapon. Then if we use the 300 Norma mags, this will slow us down a little bit in the aim down sight time department. It'll now be 517 milliseconds. And then finally, if we're using 338 Lapua, it'll be the slowest at 550 milliseconds. Now, it's also worth noting that these attachments will affect our rate of fire as well. If we're using that feather bolt instead of one of the ammunition types, our rate of fire is going to be 57 rounds per minute, which is quite fast for a bolt-action rifle. This allows for really fast follow-up shots. Then with the 300 normal mag, it's going to be 47 rounds per minute. And then finally, the slowest here is going to be the 338 Lapua mag at 43 rounds per minute. So a big trend you might be noticing as we're going through this comparison here is the 338 Lapua mags just don't have enough upsides to make up for the downsides. You get a slower aim down sight time, slower rate of fire, and really all you're gaining is a bit more damage to the stomach, which you should never really be shooting at anyway. So this is why I don't use 338 Lapua rounds, and I don't recommend using them either. So we're actually going to eliminate that from the equation, and this finally leaves us with my best attachment combination for the SPR-208. This is how I like to run it with the 300 Norma Mag ammo, which gives me a very fast bullet velocity, very little bullet drop, and therefore you barely have to compensate for moving targets or bullet drop at all, as long as you're fighting within about 300 meters or so, which is great. And we've still got a pretty decent aim down sight time at 517 milliseconds, which is quite fast. And our rate of fire is still pretty decent here as well. In my opinion, this is the most versatile sniper build in the entire game. Not only will it somewhat compete against Kar 98 snipers in close quarter situations, you can also technically challenge people at pretty extreme ranges with this, and it actually competes fairly well with like a maxed out HDR, for instance, which is traditionally known as that super long range sniper rifle. Now, if you are somebody that likes to kit a bit more for extremely long ranges, then you could swap out that optic for the variable zoom optic, but keep in mind that will also slow your aim down sight time down, so bit of a trade-off there. Personally, I prefer the more versatile setup here without the variable zoom and just using that standard sniper scope. Now, having said this, I did also want to share one variant setup that I actually do use sometimes as well if I just want to mess around or if I want to play a bit more aggressive, and this is swapping that Norma Mag ammo out for the feather bolt. Now with this setup, it's not as versatile. I'm not typically going to be trying to take really long range shots with this at all. It's just going to be my more like mid-range sniper rifle where I won't even use it beyond about 200 meters or so. Because beyond that, we really have to compensate a lot for that bullet drop and bullet travel time due to our slower bullet velocity. But we get a noticeably faster aim down sight time, so we can better compete in those close quarter situations. And our rechamber time is very, very fast, so even if we miss that first shot or we only get an upper torso shot with the first one, we often have time to rechamber around and get that second shot off, which could end up getting the kill. So yeah, this right here is my second best setup for the SPR-208, but overall, I definitely prefer using the 300 Norma Mag ammunition. which just makes for the perfect versatile sniper build, in my opinion, for Warzone. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode on the best attachment combination for the SPR-208. Now, for those that are wondering, I've done a similar thing with the FFAR as well as the Groza, although I went into much more detail with those guns because they're harder to cover than this. And I would like to know in the comments section below, which gun would you like me to cover next for this series, where I go through attachment by attachment to find the perfect setup? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.